The summer air hung thick with laughter and the sweet scent of birthday cake as Jack Matthews adjusted the video camera on his shoulder. Through the viewfinder, he captured his daughter Lily twirling in her favorite yellow dress, her gap-toothed smile beaming with all the joy a 7-year-old could muster. "Daddy, look how high I can go," Lily called out, pumping her legs harder on the backyard swing set they had assembled just last weekend. Her honey-blonde pigtails caught the late afternoon sunlight, creating a halo effect that Jack would later replay in his mind thousands of times. "I see you." "Princess, you're flying," Jack called back, his chest swelling with pride. Sarah, his wife of 9 years, appeared at his side with a tray of juice boxes. "Don't forget we're cutting the cake in 15 minutes, she reminded him, her eyes crinkling at the corners as she smiled. "And make sure you get the candle blowing on video. My mom will never forgive us if we miss it again." Jack nodded, scanning their modest Portland backyard filled with a dozen of Lily's classmates and neighborhood friends. The Matthews had saved for months to throw this perfect party. The bounce house, the fairy tale decorations, the custom sparkle princess cake that matched the new bicycle propped against the garage door, still adorned with a giant pink bow. "Where's the birthday girl?" Mrs. Winters, Lily's second-grade teacher, approached with a wrapped gift. "On the swings," Sarah pointed, but her expression quickly shifted. "Wait, she was just there a minute ago." Jack lowered the camera, squinting against the sun. "The swing swayed empty now, its chains creaking softly in the breeze. She probably went inside for the bathroom," he said, but a subtle unease crept into his voice. "I'll check." 10 minutes later, that unease had morphed into concern as Jack emerged from the house. "She's not inside," he reported to Sarah, whose fingers were now anxiously twisting the gold locket around her neck, a matching set she shared with Lily. "Maybe she's playing hide and seek?" Sarah suggested, her voice rising slightly. "Lily loves hiding." They split up, Sarah checking the garage while Jack circled the yard, asking each child if they'd seen where Lily had gone. A chorus of headshakes and shrugs only accelerated the drumming in his chest. "Did anyone see Lily leave the swings?" Jack called out to the adults, who were now sensing the tension and beginning to help with the search. Mrs. Winters approached, her brow furrowed. "I saw her talking to someone by the fence about 20 minutes ago," she offered. "I assumed it was one of the parents." The backyard gate. Jack sprinted to the white picket fence that bordered their property. The latch was unhooked, the gate slightly ajar, something he was certain he had double-checked before the party began. "Sarah!" His voice cracked as he called for his wife. "The gate's open." What began as a search extended to the neighboring yards, then to the street, and within an hour to the entire subdivision. Police officers arrived, their radios crackling with descriptions of a small blonde girl in a yellow dress. Neighbors formed search parties. The birthday cake sat forgotten, its candles unlit as darkness fell over Portland. By midnight, the Matthews living room had transformed into a command center. Detective Rollins, a weathered man with kind eyes that belied his 20 years of homicide experience, sat across from Jack and Sarah on their beige sofa. "We're treating this as a priority missing persons case," Rollins explained, his notepad open to pages of hastily scribbled details. "The fact that she disappeared from her own backyard during a supervised event suggests this wasn't a case of a child wandering off." Sarah's body shook with silent sobs as she clutched a framed photo of Lily from her first day of school. Jack's arm encircled her shoulders, but his eyes remained fixed on the detective. "What aren't you saying?" Jack pressed. Rollins sighed, closing his notepad. "Mr. Matthews, given the circumstances, the open gate, the witness seeing her talking to someone, the lack of any trace in the immediate area, we have to consider the possibility of abduction." The word fell like a stone in the quiet room, shattering the last remnants of what had been a perfect day. "We've already issued an Amber Alert," Rollins continued. "Every patrol unit in the city is looking for her. We've set up roadblocks on major exits. If someone took her, we'll find them." But they didn't find them. Not that night, nor in the days that followed. The Matthews home became a hub of activity. Police officers, FBI agents, volunteers organizing search parties, reporters seeking statements. Lily's face appeared on telephone poles, store windows, and eventually, national news broadcasts. 1 week after the disappearance, Jack found himself sitting in Lily's room at 3 a.m., the glow-in-the-dark stars on her ceiling offering faint illumination. He held her favorite stuffed unicorn, thumb tracing over the worn fabric where she had rubbed it countless times for comfort. "I'll find you," he whispered into the empty room. "I promise, Lilypad. Daddy will find you." As weeks turned into months, The visits from law enforcement grew less frequent. The media moved on to newer tragedies. Friends stopped calling as often, uncomfortable with grief they couldn't fix. For the first anniversary of Lily's disappearance, Sarah organized a candlelight vigil in the local park. Hundreds came. For the second, dozens. By the third, it was mostly family. The Matthews marriage bent under the weight of their loss. Sarah threw herself into volunteer work with missing children's organizations, while Jack became obsessed with the investigation, following up on leads the police had abandoned, driving to sightings that never panned out, keeping a map marked with every possible connection. On bad nights, which came frequently, Sarah would scream that he wasn't there when Lily needed him most. He was filming, not watching. On worse nights, Jack would silently agree. By the time the fourth anniversary passed, they were living separate lives under the same roof, connected only by the hollow space where their daughter should have been. And then came that Sunday in June of 2000, 5 years after Lily vanished, when Jack, driving aimlessly through the suburbs of Fairview to escape the suffocating silence of their home, spotted a cardboard sign that read garage sale and pulled over on a whim. He hadn't intended to stop, hadn't intended to browse through a stranger's discarded possessions, hadn't expected the world to suddenly stop spinning when, propped against a water-stained dresser, he saw a pink bicycle with faded Sparkle Princess decals and tassels hanging from the handlebars. His legs nearly buckled as he approached it, fingers trembling as they touched the small scratch on the frame, the same scratch Lily had gotten when she toppled over on her first ride without training wheels. "How much for the bike?" he managed to ask the middle-aged man arranging old tools on a folding table. $20, the man replied without looking up. "My uncle got it at some storage auction. Never used, far as I know." Jack stared at the bicycle, his heart thundering in his chest. "I'll take it," he said, already reaching for his wallet. "And I'd like to know more about that storage auction." Victor Coleman handed Jack a crumpled receipt for the bicycle, eyeing him with mild curiosity. "You seem pretty interested in an old kid's bike," he remarked, pocketing the $20 bill. "Got a daughter about that age?" Jack's throat tightened. 5 years of grief had taught him caution. Wild accusations had led nowhere before. "Something like that," he managed, running his hand along the bike's handlebars. "You mentioned your uncle got this at a storage auction?" Victor nodded, returning to arranging his merchandise. "Yeah, Uncle Ed's got a thing for those auctions. Buys abandoned units, keeps what he wants, sells the rest. Says it's like treasure hunting." He shrugged. "Mostly looks like junk to me, but he's got money to burn." Edward Coleman?" Jack asked casually, memorizing the name. "That's him. Lives over in that fancy development in West Hills. Big house for just one guy." Victor's expression softened slightly. "Been alone since my aunt died. Their daughter too. Years back. Leukemia, I think." Jack nodded sympathetically while his mind raced. "Must be hard. When was this auction? Recently? Couple years ago, I think. Uncle Ed's had the bike gathering dust in his garage. Finally convinced him to let me sell some of his stuff." Victor glanced at his watch. "You need help loading that into your car?" 20 minutes later, Jack sat in his parked car 2 blocks away, hands shaking as he dialed Sarah's number. They barely spoke these days, but this she needed to know. "What is it, Jack?" Her voice came through tired, already expecting disappointment. "I found Lily's bike," he said without preamble. A long silence followed. "Jack," Sarah began, her tone carrying the weight of 1,000 false hopes. "We've been through this. That detective in Eugene last year, the school photo in Tacoma. It's her bike, Sarah. The Sparkle Princess. It has the scratch from when she fell on the driveway. It has the bell we got her for Christmas." His voice broke. "It's her bike." Another pause. "Where?" "Garage sale in Fairview. Guy says his uncle bought it at a storage auction." Jack swallowed hard. "I'm going to find out more about this uncle. His name's Edward Coleman." "Don't do this alone," Sarah said quietly. "I'm calling Detective Rollins." "Not yet," Jack insisted. "We've had the police involved before, and it scared people off. Let me dig a little first, make sure it's solid." After hanging up, Jack opened his laptop and connected to the car's mobile internet, an expensive luxury he'd justified for his endless searches. Edward Coleman was easy to find. 62 years old, retired investment banker, widower. His address in West Hills matched what Victor had said. Social media showed minimal activity, a profile created but rarely used. Jack's search deepened. Property records showed Coleman owned 3 houses, his residence, a vacation home in Cannon Beach, and a cabin near Mount Hood. He'd purchased the mountain property 4 years ago, a year after Lily disappeared. As shadows lengthened across the suburban street, Jack made a decision. Before heading home, he drove past Edward Coleman's West Hills address, a sprawling Tudor-style house set back from the road, surrounded by manicured gardens and a wrought iron fence. Security cameras monitored the gated entrance, too risky to approach directly. That night, Jack laid the bicycle in Lily's untouched bedroom. Sarah stood in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself, staring at the faded pink frame. "It's hers," she whispered, moving forward to touch the worn seat. "God, Jack, it's really hers." They called Detective Rollins the next morning. Now retired, he arrived wearing civilian clothes but carrying the same weathered notepad. "Storage auctions usually happen when someone stops paying for their unit," Rollins explained after examining the bicycle. "The contents get sold to the highest bidder. If Coleman bought the unit, we might be able to trace it back to whoever rented it." "Can you check that?" Sarah asked, hope creeping into her voice for the first time in years. Rollins nodded. "I still have contacts. But listen." His gaze shifted between them. "This is promising, but prepare yourselves. Even if this is Lily's bike, there could be innocent explanations. Someone finding it abandoned, a thief selling it. We need more." Jack nodded but already knew he wouldn't wait for official channels. That afternoon, he called in sick to the architectural firm where he'd been sleepwalking through projects for years. Instead, he drove to the public library, where he spent hours researching Edward Coleman. Old newspaper archives revealed the story. Edward's daughter, Emily, had died of leukemia in 1993, age 8. His wife, Margaret, passed a year later, suicide, though the papers called it sudden illness. Edward had withdrawn from his banking career after that, living off his considerable wealth. The parallels made Jack's skin crawl. A man who'd lost a daughter, around Lily's age. Over the next week, Jack established a routine. Each day, he'd park near Edward Coleman's house, logging when the man left and returned. Coleman lived alone, except for weekly visits from a housekeeper. Every Tuesday morning, he drove to a therapist's office downtown. Wednesday afternoons, he visited the cemetery where his wife and daughter were buried. Weekends varied, but often included trips to his coastal property. Jack began following Coleman, keeping a careful distance. The man's routines were predictable: grocery shopping at the same high-end market, lunch at the same cafe, occasional visits to an art gallery or bookstore. On Friday morning, Coleman loaded luggage into his Mercedes and headed west toward Cannon Beach. Jack followed, maintaining several cars' distance on the highway. His burner phone chimed with a message from Sarah. "Rollins called." Storage unit was paid in cash. No name. Another dead end through official channels. Jack pressed on. Coleman's beach house proved to be a modern glass and cedar structure overlooking the ocean. Jack checked into a nearby motel, then spent the evening watching the house from a public beach access point. Through binoculars, he could see Coleman moving about inside, alone, eventually settling in an armchair with a book. Just after midnight, Jack approached the property from the beach side, where security appeared minimal. Dressed in dark clothes, he made his way to a back deck, where large windows revealed a tastefully furnished living room. Coleman had gone to bed, the house still except for a clock ticking on the mantel. Jack tested a sliding door, locked. He moved to a side window, finding it similarly secured. As he rounded the corner toward the garage, his foot caught on a landscape light, sending him stumbling against a decorative planter. The crash seemed deafening in the quiet night. A light flicked on upstairs. Jack retreated quickly, heart pounding as he disappeared into the dunes. From a safe distance, he watched Coleman check the exterior, flashlight beam sweeping the property before the man returned inside. Back at the motel, Jack cursed his carelessness. Breaking in had been a desperate, foolish idea. He needed a different approach. The answer came the next morning when he spotted a "Help Wanted" sign at the small garden center next to Coleman's beach house. The elderly owner explained they provided landscaping services to many vacation homes in the area, including Edward Coleman's. By lunchtime, Jack had a job and a new identity as Mark Taylor, recently moved from Seattle after a divorce. The garden center owner seemed relieved to find help at the start of the busy season. "Coleman's quite particular about his garden," the owner warned as Jack loaded mulch into a truck 3 days later. "But he pays well and rarely bothers the workers. Just don't disturb him when he's painting in his sunroom." Jack's hands stilled on the mulch bag. "Painting? Watercolors, I think. Always the same subject. A little blonde girl on a beach. His daughter, I expect. Tragic story." That afternoon, Jack stood trimming hedges outside Edward Coleman's beach house. Stolen glances through the windows revealing rooms of expensive furniture and tasteful art. Nothing suspicious, nothing to indicate a connection to Lily, until Coleman left for groceries, and Jack made his way to the back of the property to weed the flower beds. From that angle, he could see into the sunroom and the dozens of watercolor paintings lining the walls. Every single one depicted the same blonde girl running along a shoreline, building sandcastles, flying kites. A girl who looked exactly like Lily. Jack's gardening shears clattered to the ground. The girl in the paintings, her posture, the way she tilted her head, even the way her hair fell across her shoulders, was unmistakably Lily. Not as she had been at 7 when she disappeared, but older, as if Coleman had imagined her growing up, or had watched her grow. A car door slammed in the front driveway. Coleman had returned. Jack hastily retrieved his tools and busied himself with the flower beds, mind racing. This couldn't be coincidence. First the bike, now these paintings. The retired banker hadn't just purchased random items at a storage auction. He had some connection to Lily. Finding everything all right? Coleman's voice came from behind him, pleasant but reserved. Jack straightened, careful to keep his expression neutral as he turned. Up close, Edward Coleman appeared unremarkable. A trim, silver-haired man in pressed khakis and a blue Oxford shirt. His eyes, though, held a wariness that belied his casual tone. "Yes, sir," Jack replied, adopting the deferential tone of a service worker. "Just finishing up with these hydrangeas." Coleman nodded, gaze drifting to the ocean view. "They were my wife's favorite. She always said they reminded her of summer storms." A flash of genuine grief crossed his features. "Do you have a family, Mr. Taylor?" "Mark Taylor." Jack swallowed hard. "I did. Divorced now." "Children?" The question hung between them, loaded with significance only Jack understood. "A daughter," he answered truthfully, watching Coleman's reaction. "Haven't seen her in years." Something flickered in Coleman's eyes. Recognition? Sympathy? Guilt? It vanished too quickly to interpret. "That's the tragedy of fathers and daughters," Coleman said softly. "The best ones are always taken too soon." He checked his watch. "I'll let you get back to work. I'll be in my studio if you need anything." As Coleman walked away, Jack noticed his slight limp, left leg dragging almost imperceptibly. He filed the observation away, returning to his task while his mind categorized what he'd learned. The paintings, the fixation on a girl who looked like Lily, the beach house isolated enough to hide someone. After finishing his assigned tasks, Jack drove back to the motel and called Sarah, keeping his voice low despite the empty parking lot. "I think he has her, Sarah," he said, the words almost unbelievable even as he spoke them. "Or had her. There are paintings, dozens of them, of a girl who looks exactly like Lily but older." Sarah's breath caught audibly. "Jack, are you sure? After all this time? I need to see his other properties. The mountain cabin especially. It's remote, miles from the nearest neighbor." Jack ran a hand through his hair. "I've checked real estate records. He bought it in 1996, a year after Lily disappeared." "This is enough to get the police involved," Sarah insisted. "Rollins can get a search warrant." "Based on what? Paintings that resemble our daughter? A bike with no paper trail connecting it directly to Coleman?" "We need more." Jack's voice hardened with determination. "I'm close, Sarah. I can feel it." That night, Jack barely slept, his mind constructing and discarding theories. By dawn, he had formed a plan. Coleman had mentioned returning to Portland the following day. Jack would finish his gardening job, then follow him back to the city and eventually to the mountain cabin. The next morning brought unexpected complications. Coleman was entertaining a visitor, a man in an expensive suit who arrived in a government-issued vehicle. From his position pruning nearby shrubs, Jack could hear fragments of their conversation on the deck. "Still no developments," the visitor was saying. "Monthly checks continue as agreed." "I've held up my end," Coleman replied, tension evident in his posture. 7 years of silence doesn't come cheap. "The Bureau appreciates your discretion in this matter." The visitor slid a manila envelope across the table. "Same arrangement for the next quarter." Jack's pulse quickened. What government agency was paying Coleman for his silence? What had happened 7 years ago, 2 years before Lily disappeared? When the visitor left, Coleman remained on the deck, staring at the envelope with an expression Jack couldn't read. After several minutes, he tucked it into his jacket and went inside. That afternoon, Coleman departed for Portland as scheduled. Jack waited 20 minutes, then followed, maintaining a safe distance on the highway. Back in the city, instead of heading to his West Hills mansion, Coleman drove to a storage facility in a nondescript industrial area. Jack parked across the street, watching as Coleman entered using a key card. 40 minutes later, the man emerged carrying nothing, but looking distinctly troubled. For the next 2 days, Jack divided his time between surveilling Coleman's main residence and researching the storage facility. The latter proved challenging, a high-security operation catering to wealthy clients with no public access to unit information. His opportunity came on Wednesday. Following Coleman's regular cemetery visit, Jack watched him drive toward Mount Hood. The mountain roads narrowed as they climbed higher, making it difficult to maintain an inconspicuous distance. Jack dropped further back, relying on occasional glimpses of Coleman's distinctive Mercedes ahead. The cabin, when they finally reached it, was more substantial than Jack had expected. A 2-story log structure nestled among towering pines, with a detached garage and a small outbuilding that might have been a shed or workshop. Solar panels lined the south-facing roof, and a satellite dish suggested modern amenities despite the remote location. Jack parked his car a quarter-mile down the road, concealing it among the trees, then approached on foot through the dense forest. The property appeared quiet, with Coleman's car the only vehicle in sight. From the cover of the tree line, Jack observed Coleman unloading groceries and what looked like art supplies. The man moved with purpose, making several trips between the car and cabin before settling in. As dusk fell, lights illuminated the ground floor windows, offering glimpses of a rustic but comfortable interior. Jack circled the property cautiously, looking for signs of security systems. Unlike the beach house and main residence, the cabin seemed to have minimal protection, perhaps due to its isolation. A generator hummed somewhere behind the structure, and a woodpile suggested preparation for winter stays. As darkness deepened, Jack moved closer, approaching the small outbuilding first. The padlock on its door appeared new, contrasting with the weathered exterior. Through a dirt-streaked window, he could make out shelves of tools and outdoor equipment, normal for a mountain retreat. The cabin itself presented greater challenges. Most windows were curtained, though one at the rear provided a partial view of what appeared to be a kitchen. Coleman moved about inside, preparing a meal alone. Nothing in his actions suggested anyone else was present. Jack settled into a concealed position to wait. Hours passed. Coleman watched television, made phone calls, and eventually retired upstairs. By midnight, the cabin was dark except for a single upstairs light. The temperature dropped as Jack maintained his vigil, damp earth seeping cold through his clothes. Questions tumbled through his mind. If Coleman had taken Lily, where was she now? Was she still alive? Had she been here, in this isolated cabin? The possibilities were both hopeful and horrifying. Around 2 a.m., Jack decided to risk closer inspection. Moving silently across the clearing, he approached the rear door, a simple entrance off the kitchen. Testing the handle proved it locked, but the adjacent window was secured with an older latch that might yield to pressure. Pulling a thin pocket knife from his jacket, Jack carefully worked the blade between the window frame and latch. After several tense minutes, he felt rather than heard the mechanism give way. Inch by inch, he raised the window, wincing at each faint creak. Once the opening was wide enough, Jack hoisted himself up and through, landing softly on the kitchen floor. He froze, listening for any reaction from upstairs. When none came, he switched on a small pen light, keeping the beam directed downward. The kitchen revealed nothing unusual. Expensive appliances, well-stocked pantry, a single-place setting in the dish drainer. Jack moved through to the living room, where a stone fireplace dominated one wall. Bookshelves held volumes on art, finance, and architecture. A desk in the corner contained business correspondence and financial statements, the ordinary administration of Coleman's life. Just as Jack began to wonder if he'd been wrong about this place, his light caught something unusual. A doorway, half concealed behind a bookcase leading to what should have been a closet or storage area. Instead, it opened to a narrow staircase descending below the main floor. Heart pounding, Jack approached the stairs. There shouldn't be a basement in this type of cabin construction, not one accessed by a hidden entrance. He hesitated, then began to descend, each step careful and deliberate. The stairs led to a finished space that spanned much of the cabin's footprint. Unlike the rustic design above, this room featured smooth drywall, recessed lighting, and climate control. It resembled a studio apartment, with living areas defined by furniture groupings rather than walls. And everywhere, on every surface, hanging from every wall, were artifacts of a young girl's life. Drawings pinned to corkboards, school assignments with gold stars and teacher comments, a collection of stuffed animals arranged on a neatly made bed, a bookshelf filled with young adult novels and science textbooks. In the center of it all stood an easel with a half-finished painting, a blonde teenage girl seated on a beach gazing at the horizon. As Jack moved through the space in stunned disbelief, his light revealed a desk with a journal open to a recent entry. The handwriting was neat, girlish, with small hearts dotting the I's. The date at the top read June 15, 2000, just 3 days ago. The first line stopped his heart. "I had the dream about my yellow dress again last night." Jack's hands trembled as he carefully turned the pages of the journal, each entry dated meticulously. The handwriting evolved over time, from the large, uneven letters of a child to the more controlled script of an adolescent. 5 years of thoughts, fears, and memories, preserved in lined notebooks, stacked neatly on the desk. August 23, 1997. One entry read, "Uncle Edward says I can have the blue paint for my room if I finish my math workbook. I asked him again when Mom and Dad are coming. He says they forgot about me, but I know that's not true. Dad would never forget." Jack's throat constricted, eyes burning with unshed tears. She was alive. His daughter was alive, or had been at least until very recently. A noise from upstairs jolted him back to the present danger. Footsteps creaked across the floor above. Jack quickly replaced the journal and extinguished his light, standing motionless in the darkness. The footsteps paused, then moved toward the kitchen, away from the hidden staircase. Taking advantage of the moment, Jack photographed the room with his phone, capturing the paintings, the journal, the personal items that would prove Lily had been here. As he prepared to retreat, his eye caught a wall calendar hanging beside the bed. The current month showed several days marked with a red X, and upcoming Saturday circled in the same red ink with the notation, "Moving Day, Moving Day." Coleman was planning to relocate her, perhaps because he'd sensed Jack's surveillance, or because of whatever arrangement that government official was overseeing. The timing was critical. Jack had found her just days before she might have disappeared again. Footsteps approached the hidden door. Jack quickly slipped behind a tall wardrobe in the corner, barely breathing as the staircase light flickered on. Coleman descended slowly, favoring his left leg. He crossed to the desk, checking that everything remained in its place, then stood before the unfinished painting, studying it with a complex expression that mingled pride, sadness, and something darker. After several minutes, Coleman returned upstairs, switching off the light. Jack waited until he heard the bedroom door close above before emerging from his hiding place. The immediate urgency was clear. He needed to escape unseen, then return with help before Saturday. Retracing his steps, Jack made his way upstairs and out through the kitchen window, easing it closed behind him. The forest concealed his retreat to his hidden car, where he finally allowed himself to break down, hands pressed against the steering wheel, body shaking with silent sobs of relief and rage. Lily was alive. His child had spent 5 years in captivity while he and Sarah had slowly given up hope. Dawn was breaking as Jack drove back toward Portland, mind churning with plans. This had to be handled carefully. If Coleman got any warning, he might accelerate his moving day plans or worse, destroy evidence, or Lily herself. Sarah answered on the first ring despite the early hour. "Jack, what happened?" "She's alive," he said, his voice breaking. "Sarah, Lily's alive. I found evidence, journals, paintings, her things. Coleman's keeping her in a hidden room at his cabin." Sarah's gasp turned into something between a sob and a laugh. Oh my God, Jack, are you sure? You actually saw her?" "No, but I saw where she's living. Recent journal entries dated this week. She remembers us, Sarah. She remembers the yellow dress from her party." Jack checked his rearview mirror, paranoia making him vigilant for any sign of pursuit. "Coleman's planning to move her on Saturday. We need to act fast but carefully. I'm calling Rollins right now." "Not on a regular phone," Jack cautioned. "Coleman has some kind of government connection. I saw an official visiting him talking about payments for his silence. Use the burner phone I left in the garage lockbox." Within hours, a carefully orchestrated plan was in motion. Rollins, leveraging his connections, arranged a meeting with FBI agents who specialized in long-term missing persons cases. Jack downloaded his photographs, showing them the evidence while carefully omitting how he'd obtained it. "Based on this, we can get a search warrant," Agent Delgado confirmed after examining the images. "But we need to move strategically. If Coleman has government connections, we need to understand what we're walking into." The investigation accelerated with the urgency of the timeline. Coleman's government visitor was identified as Thomas Mercer, an agent with a classified division of the Witness Protection Program. Financial records revealed monthly payments to Coleman dating back 7 years, starting 2 years before Lily's abduction. "It doesn't make sense," Sarah said during a tense strategy meeting in a secure FBI office. "Why would Witness Protection be involved with kidnapping a child?" "They wouldn't be," Agent Delgado explained. "But they might be involved with relocating someone who later committed a crime. We're looking at the possibility that Coleman was already in the program for legitimate reasons, then abducted Lily separately." The theory gained support when analysts discovered that Edward Coleman had another identity before 1993, the year his daughter supposedly died. He had been Edward Caldwell, a banking executive involved in a major financial fraud case. He'd turned state's evidence, testifying against dangerous associates in exchange for a new identity for himself and his family. But Emily, his daughter, really did die of leukemia, the agent continued. That part is verified, and his wife's suicide is also confirmed. After losing them, it appears Coleman became fixated on replacing his daughter. The pieces aligned with terrible clarity. A grieving father, protected by the government, who had stolen another man's child to fill the void in his life. Search warrants were prepared for all 3 of Coleman's properties and the storage facility he'd visited. Teams assembled, coordinating their approach to prevent any warning reaching Coleman before they could secure Lily. Jack and Sarah waited in unbearable tension at the FBI field office as the operation began on Friday morning, 1 day before Coleman's planned moving day. Agent Delgado insisted they remain behind, both for their safety and to prevent any legal complications from Jack's unauthorized entry into Coleman's property. "We'll bring her directly here once we have her," Delgado promised. "But you need to prepare yourselves. She's been with him for 5 years. She's not the same 7-year-old you lost." The raid on Coleman's mountain cabin was executed with precision at 6:17 a.m. Tactical teams secured the perimeter while agents entered with the search warrant. Jack and Sarah watched the operation unfold through radio communications, each minute stretching like an eternity. "Main floor clear," came the first report, proceeding to hidden basement access. Minutes passed. Then, basement area secured. No individuals present. Evidence of recent occupation. Appears subject has vacated the premises. Jack's heart sank. "She's gone? We're too late?" But the next transmission reignited hope. Documents indicate subject relocated to secondary property on coast yesterday. Appears to have accelerated timeline. Teams were immediately redirected to Coleman's beach house. As agents converged on the coastal property, analysts processing evidence from the cabin made a disturbing discovery. Coleman had been systematically preparing Lily for a complete relocation. Passports, birth certificates, and school records had been created for Emily Coleman, supposedly Edward's daughter who had been studying abroad for years and was now returning to live with her father. The beach house raid began at 11:42 a.m. This time, Jack and Sarah refused to stay behind, waiting in a secure vehicle a mile from the property. "Approaching main entrance," the tactical team leader reported. No response to knock and announce. Seconds later, "Breaching front door, entering main floor." The radio transmissions came in fragments as agents moved through the house. "Main floor clear. Second floor, west side clear. Checking sunroom." Then, a transmission that stopped Jack's breath. "We have a juvenile female, appears to be the subject, alive and unharmed." Sarah clutched Jack's hand, tears streaming down her face. Long minutes passed before Agent Delgado's voice came through. "We've confirmed identity. It's Lily Matthews. She's asking for her parents." The reunion occurred in a private room at a local hospital where Lily had been taken for evaluation. Jack and Sarah stood trembling outside the door as Agent Delgado prepared them. "She's physically healthy but psychologically complex," the agent explained gently. "Coleman created an elaborate fiction, told her you had abandoned her, but he taught her to preserve memories of her old life through art and journals. It seems part of him wanted her to remember, even as he tried to replace her real family with himself." "Where is he?" Jack asked, anger hardening his voice. "In custody. Agents apprehended him at a private airfield attempting to charter a flight to Canada." Delgado hesitated. "There's something else you should know. Coleman's condition has deteriorated significantly in recent months. He has early onset dementia, likely exacerbated by grief and guilt. In his confusion, he began mixing his memories of his real daughter with Lily, sometimes treating her as Emily, sometimes acknowledging her true identity." Sarah stepped forward. "We don't care about him right now. Please let us see our daughter." The door opened to reveal a sunlit hospital room, and there, sitting on the edge of the bed, was a girl on the cusp of adolescence. Her honey blonde hair was longer now, her face having lost its childish roundness, but her eyes, those were unmistakably Lily's eyes, watching the door with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "Lily?" Sarah whispered, moving forward slowly. The girl's expression wavered between recognition and caution. "Mom?" she said, the word both a question and an answer. Her gaze shifted to Jack, standing frozen in the doorway. "Dad, you found me." Jack crossed the room in 3 strides, kneeling before his daughter, hands hovering uncertainly until she reached out to touch his face, as if confirming he was real. "I knew you'd come," she said, her voice stronger now. "I kept drawing the yellow dress so I wouldn't forget. I knew you wouldn't forget me either." Sarah joined them, the 3 Matthews clinging to each other in a tangle of tears and broken words. The road ahead would be long and difficult: trauma counseling, reintegration, legal proceedings. But in that moment, all that mattered was that the impossible had happened. Their family was whole again. 1 week later, as Lily slept in her own bed for the first time in 5 years, Jack found Sarah sitting in the kitchen, staring at the pink bicycle he'd discovered at the garage sale, the random chance that had led them back to their daughter. "What are the odds?" Sarah whispered, running her hand along the faded Sparkle Princess decals. "All those years, all those dead ends, and then you just happened to stop at that exact garage sale." Jack sat beside her, taking her hand. "I don't think it was random," he said quietly. "Coleman's nephew said his uncle had been keeping the bike for years, but suddenly decided to sell it. I think as his mind started to slip, part of him wanted to be caught. Part of him wanted Lily to go home." Sarah leaned against him, both watching the dawn light creep across their kitchen floor. "Do you think we'll ever really understand what happened? Why he took her? Why he kept all those memories alive?" Jack shook his head. "I don't know. Maybe some broken pieces can never fully make sense." He squeezed her hand. "But the important thing is, our broken piece came back to us." Upstairs, Lily stirred in her sleep, dreaming not of yellow dresses or hidden rooms, but of a pink bicycle flying down a sun-dappled street, tassels streaming in the wind, wheels carrying her home. 3 months after Lily's return, the Matthews family settled into a cautious new rhythm. Their modest Portland home, once a shrine to absence, now vibrated with the tentative sounds of healing. Lily's footsteps on the stairs, her hesitant laughter, the quiet conversations between a 12-year-old girl and the parents trying to bridge the 5-year void. Jack sat at the kitchen table reviewing paperwork from Lily's latest therapy session. Dr. Brenner, a specialist in childhood trauma and reintegration, had been working with Lily 3 times a week since her rescue. The progress reports showed improvement, but also highlighted the complex psychological landscape they were navigating. "She's displaying remarkable resilience," Dr. Brenner had told them during their last parent consultation. "But we're still unraveling the elaborate world Coleman created. He didn't simply abduct Lily, he constructed an entire alternate reality for her." Sarah entered the kitchen, hair damp from a shower, dark circles under her eyes testifying to another restless night. "She had the nightmare again," she said, pouring coffee. "The one about the locked room." Jack nodded, unsurprised. According to Dr. Brenner, Lily's dreams often revealed aspects of her captivity she couldn't articulate while awake. "Did she talk about it?" "A little. She said Coleman would sometimes lock the basement room when he was angry with her." Sarah's hand trembled slightly as she raised her cup. "Usually when she asked too many questions about us." The psychological evaluation had revealed Coleman's contradictory approach to Lily's identity. He had simultaneously tried to erase her past, telling her that her parents had abandoned her, while also encouraging her to preserve memories through art and journaling, as if some part of him recognized the cruelty of his actions. "The FBI found something else," Jack said, sliding a folder across the table. "They've been analyzing the journals from Coleman's storage unit. There are entries dating back to Lily's first days in captivity." Sarah opened the folder with reluctance. Inside were photocopies of childish handwriting, the earliest pages spotted with tear stains. "I want to go home," one entry read. "Uncle Edward says Mom and Dad gave me away because they couldn't afford me anymore. That's not true. We weren't rich, but Daddy always said I was worth more than anything. She never believed his lies," Jack said, voice thick with emotion. "Not completely." The investigation into Edward Coleman continued to uncover layers of deception. The dementia that had led to his carelessness, ultimately resulting in Lily's recovery, had progressed rapidly during his imprisonment. His legal competency to stand trial remained in question, frustrating the Matthews' desire for closure. Coleman's government connections had complicated matters further. The Witness Protection Program officially denied any knowledge of Lily's abduction, maintaining that Coleman had acted alone, outside their purview. Yet records showed that officials had continued payments to Coleman years after Lily's disappearance, raising troubling questions about potential complicity or willful ignorance. "Jack Matthews?" A voice called from the front door, followed by a knock. "It's Agent Delgado." Jack opened the door to find the FBI agent standing on their porch, expression grave. In the months since Lily's rescue, Delgado had become a fixture in their lives, part investigator, part advocate, as they navigated the legal aftermath. "Sorry to drop by unannounced," Delgado said, stepping inside, "but there's been a development I thought you should hear in person." In the kitchen, Delgado declined coffee, getting straight to the point. "Edward Coleman died last night, apparent heart attack in the medical wing of the detention center." Sarah sank into a chair. "Dead? But the trial?" "There won't be a trial now," Delgado confirmed. "I know this isn't the resolution you hoped for." Jack paced the small kitchen, processing the news. Coleman's death meant certain questions might never be answered, certain wounds never fully closed through the justice they'd anticipated. "What about the government connection?" Jack pressed. "The witness protection involvement?" Delgado sighed. "That investigation continues, but honestly, with Coleman gone, it's likely to hit dead ends. The agents involved have either retired or been reassigned. Records are conveniently incomplete. So they just get away with it?" Sarah's voice rose sharply. "With enabling a child abduction?" "I'm not giving up," Delgado assured them. "But I wanted to manage expectations. And..." She hesitated. "There's something else." Coleman left a recorded statement with his attorney. It was delivered to our office this morning. Jack and Sarah exchanged glances. "What kind of statement?" "A confession of sorts, and information about Lily that he claimed only he knew." Delgado pulled out a small digital recorder. "I've reviewed it. Most aligns with what we've already established, but there are details that might help Lily's recovery process. Dr. Brenner suggested you listen to it first, before deciding if any parts should be shared with Lily." With Delgado's assurance that Lily was still safely at her morning therapy session, they gathered in the living room. The recorder sat on the coffee table between them, an innocuous device containing the voice of the man who had stolen 5 years of their family's life. Delgado pressed play, and Edward Coleman's voice, weaker than Jack remembered from the mountain cabin, but still carrying that cultured precision, filled the room. "My name is Edward Coleman, formerly Edward Caldwell. This statement is made of my own free will, with full understanding of its legal implications. I wish to confess to the abduction of Lily Matthews on June 17, 1995. Jack clenched his fists as Coleman methodically described planning the kidnapping after seeing Lily at a park months earlier. Her resemblance to his deceased daughter Emily had triggered an obsession that culminated in him attending the birthday party disguised as a caterer's assistant, luring Lily to the fence with questions about her new bicycle, and escaping through a neighbor's yard to a waiting car. "I told her that her parents had sent me to take her on a surprise adventure," Coleman's voice continued. "By the time she realized something was wrong, we were already at the mountain cabin. I kept her sedated for the first few days while I prepared the basement room." Sarah pressed her hand to her mouth, tears streaming silently down her face as Coleman described Lily's initial terror, her escape attempts, her pleas to go home. "I told her that her parents had sold her to me because they couldn't afford to keep her. When she didn't believe me, I showed her newspaper articles about her disappearance that I'd altered to suggest her parents had been implicated. It was cruel, but I convinced myself it was necessary." The confession continued, detailing how Coleman had slowly created a new identity for Lily, homeschooling her while keeping her isolated from the outside world. He described how his connections in witness protection had unknowingly provided resources he used to create false documentation. "They never knew about Lily," Coleman insisted. "Their negligence was in failing to monitor me properly, assuming that a grieving man posed no threat." Then Coleman's tone changed, growing reflective. "What I did was unforgivable. I understand that now. But there are things about Lily that her parents should know, things that might help her heal." Jack leaned forward as Coleman described Lily's hidden resilience, how she had secretly maintained her real identity even while outwardly complying with his fiction. He revealed hiding places in the basement room where Lily had kept mementos of her true life, A beach pebble collection representing each month of captivity, a handmade calendar tracking real dates beneath the false one he provided. There's a specific trigger for her panic attacks, Coleman continued. Certain classical music, Debussy's Clair de Lune in particular. I would play it during our lessons, and now it's associated with confinement for her. She may not consciously make the connection. The recording continued for nearly an hour, Coleman methodically cataloging details of Lily's captivity that might help her parents and therapists understand her behaviors and fears. He explained his decision to sell the bicycle, a deliberate breadcrumb as his mental state deteriorated, some part of him seeking discovery. As the confession neared its end, Coleman's voice faltered. I have no right to ask forgiveness, and I expect none. But Lily should know that her strength never wavered. Even as I tried to reshape her into my Emily, she held on to herself. Tell her that her victory was complete long before you found her. She was never truly mine. The recorder clicked off, leaving a heavy silence in the living room. Agent Delgado quietly collected the device, giving Jack and Sarah a moment to process what they'd heard. We've verified the accuracy of his statements against evidence from the properties, Delgado said finally. Dr. Brenner will want to review this for insights that might help Lily's treatment. After Delgado left, Jack and Sarah sat in continued silence, the weight of Coleman's confession settling around them. The detailed accounting of Lily's captivity had opened fresh wounds, but also provided answers to questions that had haunted them. We should check those hiding places he mentioned, Sarah said eventually. If Lily really kept those mementos, Jack nodded. It might help her talk about what happened. They were still sitting there when the front door opened and Lily returned from therapy with her grandmother, who had been helping with transportation. Jack quickly wiped his eyes, forcing a smile as Lily entered the living room. At 12, Lily carried herself with a watchful poise that sometimes made Jack's heart ache. Her eyes, so like Sarah's, still held shadows, but also flashes of the spirited child they remembered. Today, she wore the friendship bracelet her best friend Zoe had made during their tearful reunion, a visible tether to her life before Coleman. Dr. Brenner says I'm doing really well, she announced, dropping her backpack on the couch. We talked about maybe trying school next semester, not full-time, but maybe a few classes. The normality of this statement, a girl discussing school possibilities, struck Jack with its extraordinary ordinariness. After months of specialized trauma treatment, security concerns, and protective isolation, the prospect of Lily rejoining the world of ordinary childhood milestones felt both terrifying and miraculous. That's wonderful, sweetheart, Sarah said, her earlier distress carefully masked. If you feel ready. Lily's gaze shifted between her parents, her perceptiveness, honed by years of reading Coleman's moods for survival, instantly detecting the emotional undercurrent in the room. Something happened, she stated, rather than asked. Is it about him? Jack and Sarah had promised never to lie to Lily, even when the truth was difficult. It was the foundation of rebuilding trust after Coleman's years of manipulation. Jack patted the couch beside him, and Lily sat down, her posture automatically straightening in the way they'd come to recognize as her self-protective stance. Yes, Jack confirmed gently. Edward Coleman died last night in the detention center. He had a heart attack. Lily absorbed this information, her expression unreadable. So there won't be a trial? No, honey, there won't be a trial now. Lily nodded slowly, then asked the question that revealed how much her thinking had been shaped by her captivity. Does that mean we're safe now? That no one's coming to take me back? Sarah moved to the couch, sitting on Lily's other side. No one was ever going to take you back, Lily. But yes, we're safe. He can never hurt any of us again. Lily was quiet for a long moment, then said something that stunned them both. I need to see where he's buried. What? Jack exchanged an alarmed glance with Sarah. Lily, why would you want that? Dr. Brenner says closure is important, Lily explained, her voice steady despite the slight tremor in her hands. I need to see for myself that he's really gone, that it's really over. Later that evening, after consulting with Dr. Brenner, who cautiously supported Lily's request as part of her process, Jack sat on the edge of Lily's bed during their nightly routine. These quiet moments had become sacred, a time when Lily sometimes shared fragments of her experience that she couldn't express during formal therapy. Dad? Lily asked as he was about to turn off the light. Did you ever stop looking for me? The question pierced Jack's heart. No, he answered truthfully. Even when others told us it was time to accept that you might not come back, we never stopped. Not really. Lily seemed to consider this. He told me you had forgotten me, but I knew that was a lie. How did you know? A faint smile touched her lips. Because you taught me that dragonflies can fly backwards. Remember? At the lake that summer. Jack's breath caught. It was such a small moment. A father and daughter watching dragonflies skimming over water, sharing a fact he'd recently learned. That she had clung to this tiny detail through 5 years of captivity, using it as an anchor to her true identity, overwhelmed him. I remember, he managed to say. Every single moment with you, Lilypad. We remembered all of it. As Jack turned off the light, Lily's voice came again from the darkness. I kept a calendar, in a hole behind the bookshelf, counting days until someone would find me. Jack paused in the doorway. You never gave up either. No, she agreed softly. I knew you'd find my bicycle eventually. The cemetery was quieter than Lily had expected. She stood between her parents, eyes fixed on the simple marker that bore Edward Coleman's name, birth date, and nothing more. No loving tributes, no beloved father, or rest in peace. Just the stark facts of a life begun and ended. Are you okay? Sarah asked, her hand gentle on Lily's shoulder. We can leave whenever you want. Lily shook her head. Not yet. She needed this moment. Needed to see with her own eyes that the man who had stolen her childhood was truly in the ground. Dr. Brenner had warned her parents that closure wasn't as simple as visiting a grave, but had supported Lily's request as part of her healing journey. 2 weeks had passed since they'd learned of Coleman's death. In that time, Lily had experienced a roller coaster of emotions: relief, confusion, anger, and a strange, unexpected grief that Dr. Brenner assured her was normal, not a sign that she had succumbed to Stockholm Syndrome. He wasn't a monster all the time, Lily had explained during a family therapy session, her voice small but determined. Sometimes he was just sad, sometimes he was kind in his way. I know that doesn't make what he did right, but Dr. Brenner had nodded. Trauma bonds are complex, Lily. It's okay to have complicated feelings about your captor, especially one who created moments of comfort alongside the harm. Now, standing before Coleman's grave, those complicated feelings swirled within her. Lily reached into her pocket and withdrew a small object, a smooth beach stone, one of many she had collected during her captivity, each representing a month of waiting, hoping, enduring. I don't need to count anymore, she said quietly, placing the stone atop the marker. It wasn't forgiveness. She wasn't ready for that, might never be, but it was an acknowledgement of the strange, twisted chapter of her life that had finally closed. Jack watched his daughter's ritual with a mixture of awe and heartache. After receiving Coleman's recorded confession, FBI agents had recovered Lily's hidden mementos from the basement room: the pebble calendar, scraps of drawings, a crude diary written on toilet paper and hidden inside a hollowed-out book. These tangible proofs of her resistance had been powerful therapeutic tools, helping Lily reclaim her narrative. Ready? He asked as Lily stepped back from the grave. She nodded, taking both her parents' hands as they walked back to the car. Behind them, the single stone sat in stark relief against the gray marker. Not a memorial, but a full stop at the end of a dark sentence. The following Monday brought another milestone: Lily's first venture into public education since her return. Rather than immediately returning to conventional school, Dr. Brenner had arranged for Lily to join a small educational group for children with special circumstances, some recovering from trauma, others transitioning from homeschooling or returning from abroad. The program offered academic instruction alongside social skills development, with staff trained in trauma-informed approaches. Remember, you can call me anytime, Sarah said as they parked outside the nondescript building that housed the program. And we're only trying 3 days a week to start. Mom, I'll be fine, Lily insisted, though the slight tremble in her voice betrayed her nervousness. Ms. Delgado already checked out everyone who works there. Agent Delgado, Elena, as she'd become to the family, had indeed vetted the facility thoroughly, part of the ongoing protective measures the FBI maintained around Lily. While Coleman was gone, questions about potential accomplices or negligent officials remained open. Jack adjusted Lily's backpack, a new one covered in patches she had selected herself. Just be yourself, Lilypad. No pressure. The phrase had become their mantra in recent months. During her captivity, Lily had been forced to be someone else, a ghost child playing a role to survive. Now, the freedom to simply be herself represented both liberation and challenge. Who was Lily Matthews at 12, when her development had been so profoundly interrupted? As Lily walked toward the entrance, shoulders squared with determined courage, Sarah leaned against Jack in the parking lot. She's the strongest person I've ever known, she whispered. Jack nodded, throat tight, stronger than both of us combined. That evening, Lily bubbled with cautious enthusiasm about her first day, the creative writing project they'd started, the science experiment involving plant growth, the girl named Amara who had shared her colored pencils. She was in a car accident last year, Lily explained, arranging her new school supplies on her desk. That's why she's in the program. She missed a lot of school during recovery. Did you tell anyone about your situation? Sarah asked carefully. Lily shook her head. Ms. Winters said I don't have to share anything until I'm ready. But everyone knows we all have stuff. That's what Amara called it. Everyone here has stuff. Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed, Jack found Sarah in their home office, surrounded by paperwork. Since Lily's return, Sarah had thrown herself into advocacy work, connecting with organizations that supported families of missing children and lobbying for improved law enforcement protocols. Elena sent over the latest files from Coleman's storage unit, Sarah said, gesturing to a box on the desk. Mostly financial records, but there might be something useful for the investigation into the government connection. Jack sat beside her, examining a document that outlined payment schedules. They're still claiming they had no knowledge of Lily? Officially, yes. The Witness Protection Program insists Coleman acted alone, and that their oversight was limited to his legitimate protection needs. Sarah's voice hardened. But these payment records show increased amounts after 1995. Someone approved those increases. The possibility that government officials had, at minimum, failed to properly monitor Coleman, and at worst, turned a blind eye to suspicious circumstances, had become a driving force in Sarah's advocacy. She was determined to expose systemic failures that had enabled her daughter's abduction. The Washington Post reporter called again, she added. She wants to do an in-depth story on Coleman's witness protection status and how it facilitated the kidnapping. Jack hesitated. Dr. Brenner cautioned against too much media exposure right now. For Lily's sake, I know. But this isn't about publicity, Jack. It's about accountability. Sarah gathered the documents into a neat stack. If we can prove negligence or complicity, it could prevent another child from going through what Lily did. Their conversation was interrupted by a soft sound from the hallway. Lily stood in the doorway, hair tousled from sleep, eyes alert despite the late hour. I had the dream again, she said quietly. Not the bad one, the one about the bicycle. Sarah immediately made room on the small office sofa, and Lily curled between her parents, a position that had become her safe place during difficult moments. Want to tell us about it? Jack asked, smoothing her hair. Lily nodded. In the dream, I'm riding my bike down a long road. It keeps changing. Sometimes it's the street in front of our old house. Sometimes it's the beach near his cabin. Sometimes it's nowhere I recognize. But I'm always pedaling towards something. She paused. Dr. Brenner says it's a good dream, that I'm moving forward. Sarah hugged her daughter closer. She's right, and we're all moving forward together. As summer transitioned to fall, the Matthews family continued their careful reconstruction. The trial they had anticipated would never happen, but other forms of justice progressed. The FBI investigation into the Witness Protection Program's oversight failures resulted in the early retirement of 2 senior officials and new protocols for monitoring protected witnesses with access to children. The Washington Post article Sarah had contributed to generated national attention, prompting a congressional inquiry into interagency communication failures that had allowed Coleman to operate undetected for years. Lily's story, with her identity protected, became a catalyst for reform. For Jack, justice took a more personal form. With Lily's permission, he channeled their experience into designing a new kind of emergency alert system for missing children, one that better utilized community resources and technology. The prototype, developed with his architectural firm's support, was being piloted in 3 states. Lily herself marked progress in smaller, equally significant ways. Her first full week at the transitional school, her reunion with old friends, navigated with the help of Dr. Brenner, the night she slept without a nightlight for the first time since her return. On a crisp October morning, 5 months after Lily's rescue, and almost exactly 5 years from when she had disappeared, the Matthews family stood in their driveway around the pink sparkle Princess bicycle, now restored to its former glory with new tassels, a fresh coat of paint, and the original bell that had helped Jack identify it at the garage sale. You don't have to do this today, Jack assured Lily, who stood examining the bike with a mixture of determination and apprehension. There's no rush. Since her return, Lily had avoided bicycles entirely, the association with her abduction too painful to confront. but recently she had asked her parents to restore her old bike, a request that Dr. Brenner had supported as a powerful reclaiming of a traumatic symbol. "I want to," Lily insisted, running her hand along the handlebars. "Not the whole way to the park maybe, but I want to try." Sarah adjusted Lily's helmet, fighting to keep her expression casual despite the significance of the moment. "Just to the corner and back then. We'll be right beside you." Lily nodded, taking a deep breath before mounting the bicycle. Her feet found the pedals, muscle memory returning despite the years away. She wobbled slightly, then steadied, Jack's hand resting lightly on the back of the seat, until she nodded for him to let go. As Lily pedaled slowly down the driveway, Sarah reached for Jack's hand, both of them watching their daughter navigate this tangible metaphor for her healing journey. Unsteady at first, then with growing confidence as she reached the corner, turned, and pedaled back toward them, a smile breaking across her face like sunrise. "I did it!" she called, braking carefully in front of them. "It's like I never forgot how." "Some things stay with you," Jack said, his voice thick with emotion, "no matter what." That evening, as Jack helped Lily arrange her growing rock collection on a new shelf in her bedroom, the beach stones from captivity now integrated with new specimens gathered during family outings, she asked a question that caught him off guard. "Dad, do you think we'll ever know everything that happened during those 5 years?" Jack considered his answer carefully. "Probably not everything, no. Some pieces might always be missing or unclear." Lily nodded, placing a smooth obsidian stone in the center of her display. "Dr. Brenner says that's okay. That healing isn't about having a perfect story with all the answers. It's about making peace with the questions." Jack marveled at his daughter's wisdom, hard-won through experiences no child should endure. "She's right. And you're doing exactly that, Lilypad, every day?" Lily smiled at the childhood nickname that had once been a painful reminder of absence, but now felt like a bridge between past and present. "I know I'm still broken in some ways," she said matter-of-factly. "But broken things can still be beautiful, right? Like that Japanese art you showed me, where they fill cracks with gold." "Kintsugi," Jack confirmed, throat tight. "And yes, the most beautiful things are often those that have been broken and mended with care." As they finished arranging the collection, Jack noticed a small velvet pouch on Lily's desk. "What's this?" "Open it," Lily encouraged. Inside, Jack found a delicate gold locket, the match to the one Sarah had worn throughout Lily's absence, the one they had believed lost forever. "Where did you get this?" he asked, stunned. "It was in the things the FBI found in the hidden room," Lily explained. "I kept it in a hole in the wall behind my bed. He never knew I had it." She took the locket from Jack's palm, opening it to reveal the tiny family photo inside, the three Matthews smiling from a time before their world fractured. "I looked at it every night before I went to sleep, to remember what was real." Jack enfolded his daughter in a careful embrace, mindful of the boundaries Dr. Brenner had helped establish for physical contact. Lily returned the hug without hesitation, another small victory in a long campaign of healing. "Can you help me put it on?" she asked, holding out the necklace. As Jack fastened the delicate chain around his daughter's neck, he saw the moment as it was, not an end to their journey, but a significant milestone along a path that would continue to unfold, with challenges and triumphs they couldn't yet imagine. The locket settled against Lily's collarbone, gleaming in the evening light, a tiny golden anchor connecting past to present, broken pieces to new wholeness, lost to found. 1 year after Lily's rescue, the Matthews family stood in the entryway of their new home, a craftsman-style house overlooking a small lake on Portland's outskirts. Sunlight streamed through stained glass panels flanking the front door, casting prismatic patterns across the hardwood floors. "What do you think?" Jack asked, watching Lily explore the space with measured steps. At 13, she had grown taller over the past year, her frame filling out as regular meals and physical therapy corrected the effects of her confined years. Her honey blonde hair was shorter now, a pixie cut she had chosen herself, a deliberate departure from the long hair Coleman had insisted upon. "It's perfect," Lily declared, her voice carrying a confidence that still sometimes surprised them, "especially the window seat in my room, and no basements." The absence of below-ground spaces had been a non-negotiable feature in their house search. Dr. Brenner had supported the family's decision to move from their old home, the site of both Lily's abduction and the painful years of her absence, while cautioning against making too many changes at once, establishing new patterns without erasing meaningful connections to the past. She had advised during a family session, "That's the balance we're aiming for. Sarah entered from the kitchen, where she had been directing movers. "They're putting the last boxes in the study now," she reported, brushing dust from her hands. "Lily, your Aunt Meg called. She and the cousins will be here tomorrow to help with the unpacking." The expansion of Lily's support network had been another carefully managed aspect of her recovery. Beyond her parents and Dr. Brenner, a tight circle of extended family and selected friends had been gradually reintroduced into her life. Each new person represented both opportunity and challenge, potential support, but also inevitable questions about her missing years. "What did you tell them about everything?" Lily had asked before their first family gathering, anxiety evident in her fidgeting hands. "Just what you approved," Sarah had assured her. "That you were taken, that you survived, that you're healing. The details are yours to share or keep private, whenever and however you choose." This approach had become their guiding principle. Lily's story belonged to Lily. Her parents could advocate, protect, and support, but the narrative control remained firmly in their daughter's hands. As the family settled into their new home, that principle was tested when a true crime podcast attempted to feature Lily's case without their consent. Sarah's advocacy connections quickly shut down the project, but the incident highlighted the ongoing challenges of privacy in a story that had captured national attention. "People are fascinated by the dramatic parts," Dr. Brenner explained when Lily expressed frustration about the unwanted spotlight. "The abduction, the discovery, the villain's downfall. What they don't understand is that the real story, the one that matters, is happening now, in the quiet work of rebuilding." That quiet work continued through seasonal changes and small milestones. Lily's transition to a mainstream school for 8th grade, attending 3 days a week with a modified curriculum. Jack's promotion to partner at his architectural firm, where his child safety designs had gained recognition. Sarah's appointment to a state-level task force on missing persons protocols, turning her advocacy into policy. On a warm evening in July, the family hosted their first backyard gathering at the new house, a modest cookout with Lily's aunt and cousins, Sarah's co-workers from the advocacy center, and 2 carefully selected friends from Lily's new school. As Jack manned the grill and Sarah arranged salads on the patio table, Lily sat at the dock's edge with her cousin Emma, dangling their feet in the lake water. From the deck, Jack watched his daughter's animated conversation, noting how her shoulders remained relaxed, her gestures open. These physical markers of comfort had become precious indicators of her progress. "She's doing really well today," Sarah murmured, joining him with a tray of lemonade glasses. No scanning behaviors, no position changes. They had learned to observe the subtle signs of Lily's anxiety, the way she would position herself with clear sight lines to exits when feeling threatened, the scanning pattern her eyes would follow when assessing new people, the slight shift in her posture that indicated her vigilance had activated. "Emma's good for her," Jack noted. "Never pushes, never stares." Their conversation paused as Agent Delgado, Elena, as she was now firmly established in their lives, arrived with her husband. Though the official investigation had concluded months ago, Elena had maintained a personal connection with the family, becoming something between a friend and a protective older sister to Lily. "Special delivery," Elena announced, presenting a small gift bag to Lily as the teenager joined the gathering on the deck. An early birthday present. Inside was a delicate charm bracelet, featuring a miniature bicycle among other symbols. Lily's face lit with appreciation as she fastened it around her wrist, the silver charms catching the evening light. "Each one represents something you've reclaimed this year," Elena explained. "The bicycle for obvious reasons, the book for returning to school, the key for the new house. And this one?" Lily asked, touching a small compass charm. "For finding your way even when the path isn't clear." Elena squeezed Lily's shoulder gently. "You've been navigating by your own true north all along." As the gathering continued into dusk, lanterns illuminating the yard with soft light, Jack found himself in conversation with Elena's husband, a criminal psychologist who had consulted on Coleman's case before the man's death. "I've been meaning to ask," Jack said, lowering his voice. "In your professional opinion, was Coleman's dementia real, or an act to avoid prosecution?" The question had lingered during the months since Coleman's death. The convenient timing of his cognitive decline, coinciding with the investigation closing in, had raised suspicions. "The medical evaluations were conclusive," Elena's husband replied. "Early onset frontotemporal dementia, exacerbated by untreated depression." The timeline actually makes sense. The symptoms would have begun years earlier. becoming noticeable to those around him just before his carelessness led to discovery. So, when he left the bike at his nephew's garage sale, he was likely already experiencing significant executive function impairment, the same deterioration that made him increasingly erratic with Lily in those final months. He studied Jack's expression carefully. Does it matter whether his decline was genuine or strategic? Jack considered the question. I don't know. Maybe not. But I keep thinking about his confession. How methodical it was. How detailed. It doesn't align with someone in cognitive decline. The recording was made during a lucid period, according to his attorneys. Those windows became increasingly rare toward the end. He paused. The human mind is complex, Jack. Coleman could be simultaneously calculating and deteriorating, remorseful and manipulative, just like he could be both monstrous and kind to Lily. Jack concluded, the parallels clarifying his understanding. The contradictions don't cancel each other out. They coexist. Across the deck, Lily laughed at something Emma said, the sound carrying across the water. Jack watched his daughter's face, illuminated by lantern light, and saw both the shadows of her experience and the emergence of her resilience, the contradictions coexisting. Later that night, after guests had departed and the house quieted, Jack found Lily sitting on her window seat, gazing at the lake where moonlight traced a silver path across the water. Her new charm bracelet glinted as she turned the compass charm between her fingers. Good day? He asked, sitting beside her. Lily nodded. Good day. She hesitated, then added, I've been thinking about something Dr. Brenner and I discussed in therapy yesterday. What's that? About purpose. How sometimes terrible experiences can shape what we're meant to do. She turned to face him fully. I think I know what I want to be when I grow up. The phrase itself, so ordinary, so forward-looking, made Jack's heart swell. What's that, Lilypad? A child psychologist, like Dr. Brenner. Her expression was earnest, determined. I want to help kids who've been through hard things. I understand them in a way most people can't. Jack nodded, recognizing both the beauty and the weight of this aspiration. That's a powerful calling, and you'd be extraordinary at it. It wouldn't be easy, Lily acknowledged. Dr. Brenner says I'd need to make sure my own healing is solid first, that it could trigger my own trauma sometimes. You've got time, Jack assured her. Years to figure it out, to heal, to prepare, and whatever path you choose, we'll support you. Lily leaned against her father's shoulder, a gesture of trust that had once been impossible for her. I used to worry that he broke something in me that could never be fixed, she confessed quietly, that I'd always be defined by what happened. And now, she considered the question, her gaze returning to the moonlit lake. Now I think maybe being broken isn't the end of the story. Maybe it's just the beginning of a different one. The school year brought new challenges and triumphs as Lily navigated 8th grade, her first full academic year since before her abduction. The transition from the specialized program to mainstream education had been carefully orchestrated, with accommodations for her unique circumstances and ongoing therapy needs. Most significant was the delicate balance between privacy and disclosure. The school administration and Lily's teachers had been briefed on her history, but among her peers, Lily chose to share her story selectively, testing different levels of revelation with different friends. It's exhausting sometimes, she confided to her parents after a particularly difficult day, deciding how much to tell, watching their faces change when they realize. Dr. Brenner had prepared them for this phase. Identity integration is complex for trauma survivors, she had explained. Lily is figuring out how her experience fits into who she is becoming, whether it's a defining characteristic, a footnote, or something in between. The answer emerged gradually through Lily's choices and interactions. With some friends, she was simply Lily Matthews, the new girl who liked science and drawing. With others, she shared carefully edited versions of her story. And with a select few, those who earned her deepest trust, she revealed more complete truths. One such friend was Zoe Parker, who had been Lily's closest companion before the abduction and had maintained a place in her life after her return. On a rainy November afternoon, the two girls huddled in Lily's window seat, surrounded by textbooks and forgotten homework as their conversation drifted to more personal territories. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't been taken? Zoe asked, the directness that had initially helped their reconnection again bridging difficult subjects. Like who you'd be now? Lily considered the question, appreciating that Zoe never tiptoed around her history. All the time, she admitted. I'd probably be better at math, more normal about stuff like sleepovers and crowds, but maybe not as strong. Zoe suggested. Or as wise. You kind of see things differently than everyone else our age. This observation aligned with feedback Lily had received from adults in her life, that her perspective carried unusual depth, her empathy, exceptional maturity. These qualities, born from trauma, represented the complex legacy of her experience. I think about the other kids, Lily said after a pause. The ones who are still missing, or the ones who never came home at all. Statistics had become both haunting and motivating for Lily. In the years since her rescue, she had learned that her case was exceptionally rare. Most long-term missing children were never found alive. This knowledge had intensified her interest in Dr. Brenner's work and strengthened her resolve to eventually contribute to child recovery and healing efforts. That's why I'm going to the thing next month, she told Zoe, referring to a small speaking engagement she had agreed to as part of a training program for law enforcement. If it helps even one kid get found. The decision to participate in the training had come after months of consideration. Dr. Brenner had neither encouraged nor discouraged Lily's interest, instead helping her explore her motivations and boundaries. Sarah, drawing on her advocacy experience, had ensured strict protocols to protect Lily's privacy and emotional well-being during the event. As December approached, preparations for Lily's presentation intensified. Though her role would be limited, a 20-minute moderated conversation with Dr. Brenner before a select audience of officers specializing in missing children cases, the significance weighed heavily on the entire family. Are you sure about this? Jack asked the night before the event, helping Lily review her talking points at the kitchen table. You can change your mind, even tomorrow morning. No one would blame you. Lily shook her head, determination evident in the set of her jaw, an expression Jack recognized from his own reflection. I'm nervous, but I'm sure. These officers need to hear from someone who lived it, about the small things that mattered, the mistakes adults made, the things that helped me hold on. The presentation itself was closed to media and general public, held in a secure conference room at the FBI field office where Elena Delgado had first interviewed Lily after her rescue. Jack and Sarah watched from the back as their daughter took her place beside Dr. Brenner, facing 30 attentive officers. My name is Lily Matthews, she began, her voice steady despite the slight tremor in her hands. When I was 7 years old, I was abducted from my birthday party by a man who kept me captive for 5 years. Today, I want to tell you about what that experience taught me and how it might help you in your work. For the next 20 minutes, Lily spoke with remarkable composure about aspects of her captivity that could inform search and recovery efforts, the importance of routine objects that might seem insignificant to investigators but represented survival totems to captive children, the ways her abductor had both isolated and indoctrinated her, the small resistances she had maintained even while outwardly complying. The bicycle was key to everything, she explained, touching the charm bracelet that had become her talisman. My abductor thought it was safe to keep because it was hidden away, but objects carry memories that can't be erased. When my father saw that bike at the garage sale, all the connections that had been severed suddenly had a chance to reform. As Lily concluded her remarks and the officers rose in a standing ovation, Jack caught Sarah's eye across the room. In their shared glance was the recognition of a turning point, their daughter transforming her trauma into purpose, her broken places into sources of light. The new year arrived with a significant legal development. The congressional investigation into the Witness Protection Program's oversight failures had resulted in formal findings of negligence. While no criminal charges would be filed against the officials involved in Coleman's case, substantial policy reforms were being implemented across federal agencies responsible for protected witnesses. It's not perfect justice, Sarah acknowledged during a family dinner discussion of the news, but it's systemic change that might prevent another family from going through what we did. Lily, who had been following the proceedings with keen interest, nodded thoughtfully. It's like what Dr. Brenner says about healing. Sometimes it's not about getting everything you think you want, but about making meaning from what you've experienced. Jack marveled at this insight, one of many moments when his daughter's wisdom transcended her years. As they cleared the dinner dishes together, he found himself studying her profile, the determined set of her chin, the thoughtful furrow of her brow, seeing both the child she had been and the young woman she was becoming. Dad? Lily caught his gaze, a small smile lifting the corner of her mouth. You're doing the staring thing again, Jack chuckled, caught in his parental contemplation. Sorry, just thinking about how far we've come, how far you've come. Lily loaded a plate into the dishwasher, considering his words. We're still coming though, aren't we? It's not like there's a finish line where everything's fixed and perfect. No finish line, Jack agreed. Just new chapters, new challenges, new growth. As spring blossomed around their lakeside home, that growth continued in unexpected ways. Lily's interest in psychology deepened through volunteer work at a children's center. Jack's safety designs evolved into a comprehensive security system being adopted by schools nationwide. Sarah's advocacy expanded to international cooperation on missing children cases. The Matthews family story, once defined by tragedy, was rewriting itself through purpose and resilience. The broken pieces, carefully gathered and deliberately arranged, formed a new foundation. Not perfect, not unmarked by what had shattered them, but strong enough to build upon. On the second anniversary of Lily's rescue, the family gathered at the lake's edge at sunset. Without discussion, they had each brought a paper lantern, a ritual they had started the previous year, inspired by various cultural traditions of release and remembrance. "What are you letting go of this year?" Sarah asked as they prepared their lanterns. Lily considered the question, pen poised over her lantern's surface. "The fear that I'll always be defined by what happened to me," she decided, writing the words in her neat script. "I'm more than just the girl who was taken." Jack nodded, writing his own message. "The guilt that I couldn't protect you." It was a burden he had carried even through therapy, even knowing rationally that Coleman's actions were not his failure. Sarah's message completed the circle. "The anger that threatened to consume me." Her advocacy work had helped channel that anger into productive change, but the emotion itself needed release. As dusk deepened around them, they lit their lanterns and released them over the water, watching as the glowing orbs drifted upward, carrying their written releases into the darkening sky. The ritual held no magic beyond what they invested in it, but the symbolic unburdening felt tangible nonetheless. "Look," Lily said softly as their lanterns joined others appearing across the lake, neighbors engaging in their own ceremonies of remembrance or celebration. "We're not alone." The simple observation carried profound truth. They were not alone in their healing, not isolated in their journey from trauma to recovery. Their broken pieces, mended with care and purpose, had become part of a larger constellation of human resilience, separate lights connected by the darkness they illuminated. As the last lantern disappeared from view, Lily turned to her parents with clear eyes and a steady smile. "I'm ready for what comes next," she said, not as a child seeking reassurance, but as a young person stepping confidently toward her future. Jack and Sarah each took one of their daughters' hands. The three of them connected as they had been before tragedy intervened, as they would remain through whatever challenges lay ahead, not despite what had broken them, but because of how they had chosen to mend. Summer arrived with the scent of pine and lake water, warming the Matthews home with long golden evenings. On a particularly bright June morning, Lily stood in her bedroom, contemplating the outfit laid across her bed, a simple yellow sundress, its color a deliberate choice for the day ahead. "Are you sure about the dress?" Sarah asked from the doorway, understanding its significance. "You could wear anything you'd be comfortable in." Lily nodded, fingers tracing the fabric. "I'm sure. It feels right somehow, coming full circle." Today marked Lily's 14th birthday, the 7th anniversary of her abduction, and the second birthday she would celebrate since her return. Rather than allowing the date to remain shadowed by trauma, the family had decided, with Dr. Brenner's support, to reclaim it through new traditions and deliberate joy. "Yellow was always your color," Sarah said softly, entering to help with Lily's hair. At 14, Lily had begun growing out her pixie cut, the honey blonde strands now reaching just below her ears in a stylish bob. "Brings out your eyes." As Sarah gently styled her daughter's hair, their reflections in the mirror told a story of healing, the careful touches no longer triggering Lily's startled response, the physical closeness now a comfort rather than a threat. These subtle shifts represented mountains of therapeutic work, countless patient moments of rebuilding trust. Downstairs, Jack was putting final touches on birthday decorations that balanced celebration with sensitivity. No surprise elements, no overwhelming crowds, just family and a few close friends gathering for a lakeside picnic. Lily had been involved in every planning decision, her agency in the day's events a cornerstone of their approach. "Perfect timing," he called as Lily descended the stairs in her yellow dress, a delicate gold headband catching the light. The first guests just pulled in. The gathering unfolded with comfortable ease. Aunt Meg and the cousins, Elena and her husband, Zoe and another friend from school, Dr. Brenner and her family joining for what had become more than a professional relationship. Conversations flowed around the picnic tables set up on the lawn sloping toward the lake, laughter mingling with the gentle lapping of water against the shore. After lunch, as Jack prepared to serve the birthday cake, lemon with vanilla frosting, Lily's childhood favorite reclaimed, Elena approached with a small wrapped package. "This arrived at the field office yesterday," she explained quietly. "It's been thoroughly checked. We believe it's from Victor Coleman." Jack's expression tightened. "Coleman's nephew? The one with the garage sale?" Elena nodded. "He's been cooperative throughout the investigation. This appears to be a personal gesture, not connected to the case." Lily, overhearing, joined them with curious eyes. "What is it?" "A package," Jack explained, no longer shielding Lily from difficult realities but allowing her to choose her level of engagement. "From the man whose garage sale led us to find you. We don't have to open it today, or ever." Lily considered this, then held out her hand. "I want to see it." The small package, wrapped in simple brown paper, contained a velvet box and a handwritten note. Lily read the note first, her expression thoughtful. "I found this among my uncle's possessions after his estate was finally settled. I believe it belongs to Lily, perhaps as a small measure of restitution for what cannot be repaid. I continue to be deeply sorry for my unwitting role in these events. Victor Coleman." Inside the velvet box lay a child's bracelet of delicate silver links, sized for a 7-year-old wrist. Lily's breath caught as she recognized it, a birthday gift from her grandmother, worn on the day of her abduction, presumed lost forever. "He kept it all this time," she whispered, touching the tiny silver charm shaped like a lily flower. "In some strange way, he was preserving pieces of me even while trying to erase me." The contradictions of her captor, his cruelty, and his distorted care, had been a recurring theme in Lily's therapy. This tangible evidence of that duality seemed fitting on this day of reclamation and remembrance. "What would you like to do with it?" Sarah asked, allowing Lily to direct their response. Lily considered the bracelet, then glanced toward the lake where afternoon sun scattered diamonds across the water. "I'd like to keep it, actually. Not to wear, but to have, as part of my story." Dr. Brenner, who had observed the exchange from a respectful distance, nodded her approval of Lily's integration of this unexpected element of her past. The bracelet joined the narrative neither as a treasured keepsake nor as a discarded artifact of trauma, but as an acknowledged piece of a complex history. As the afternoon progressed to evening, the gathering shifted to the dock extending into the lake. Jack had arranged a simple ceremony, 14 lanterns to be lit and released over the water, one for each year of Lily's life, recognizing both the years lost and those reclaimed. "Before we light the lanterns," Lily announced, standing at the dock's edge with unexpected composure, "I want to share something I've been working on with Dr. Brenner." From her pocket, she withdrew a folded sheet of paper. "This is a letter to my 7-year-old self, the girl in the yellow dress who disappeared that day." Dr. Brenner suggested writing it as a way to connect who I was with who I am now. The gathering quieted as Lily unfolded her letter and began to read. "Dear 7-year-old Lily, today is our birthday. Your 7th, my 14th. You don't know yet that in a few hours, everything will change. You're excited about your new bicycle and the Sparkle Princess cake Mom spent hours decorating. You're wearing your favorite yellow dress and feeling like the most special girl in the world. I want you to know that even though difficult years are ahead, you never stop being special. You never stop being loved. And most importantly, you never stop being yourself, even when someone tries to make you forget who you are. The strength you don't yet know you have will carry you through dark places. Your memories of Mom and Dad will keep you anchored when nothing else makes sense. And one day, against impossible odds, the bicycle you're so excited about will lead them back to you. I carry you with me every day, not as a burden of trauma, but as the foundation of who I'm becoming. Your joy, your trust, your love of dragonflies and peach ice cream and bedtime stories, none of that was lost, just waiting to be rediscovered. So on our birthday I celebrate you, the girl in the yellow dress, the keeper of memories, the beginning of my story. With love and gratitude, 14-year-old Lily." As Lily finished reading, the silence around her was reverent, broken only by gentle sounds of water against the dock and the soft catching of breath from those moved to tears. Jack and Sarah stood together, hands clasped, witnessing their daughter's profound act of self-reconciliation. "Now we can light the lanterns," Lily said, returning the letter to her pocket with a small smile that acknowledged both the gravity and the grace of the moment. As 14 lanterns rose above the lake, their golden light reflecting on the water below, the gathering watched in communal appreciation of the journey symbolized by their ascent. Each represented a chapter in Lily's life, some filled with darkness, others with light, all part of a continuing story being written with courage and intention. Later, as evening deepened and guests departed, Lily stood at the edge of the dock alone, the yellow dress glowing in the last light of sunset. Jack approached carefully, respecting the moment of solitude while offering quiet company. "Good birthday?" he asked, standing beside her. Lily nodded, her gaze on the horizon where their lanterns had disappeared. "Different than I expected. Better. Different how?" She considered the question, formulating her answer with the thoughtfulness that had become characteristic of her communication. "I thought I needed to pretend today wasn't also the anniversary of what happened, but acknowledging both, the celebration and the remembrance, felt more real, more whole." Jack recognized in her words the integration Dr. Brenner had described as a key goal of trauma recovery, the ability to hold contradictory truths simultaneously, to incorporate painful experiences into a coherent life narrative without being defined by them. "You're remarkable, you know that?" he said softly. "Not because of what happened to you, but because of how you've chosen to respond to it." Lily leaned against her father's shoulder, comfortable in the contact. "I had good examples," she replied. "You and Mom never gave up, even when it would have been easier." As darkness settled over the lake and the first stars appeared, they remained on the dock, father and daughter, their silhouettes merging in the gathering dusk. Behind them, lights from the house created a golden pathway across the lawn, Sarah moving between rooms, secure in the knowledge that her family was whole, healing, and home. The story of Lily Matthews, the girl who disappeared and was found, who was broken and mended, who endured and thrived, had no neat ending, no final chapter where all questions were answered and all wounds healed. Instead, it continued to unfold day by day, choice by choice, moment by moment of reclamation and growth. What had begun with a lost bicycle discovered at a garage sale had come full circle to this quiet evening by the lake, where a girl in a yellow dress stood at the threshold between her past and her future, choosing to move forward, carrying both her scars and her strength. And in that choice was the truest victory of all.